So much for 16-0 for the Carolina Hurricanes during the playoffs. Welcome to NHL Wraparound Stanley Cupdate, heading into Memorial Day weekend. It is Friday, May 22nd. Vic and Neil with you. So what happened last night, Captain?
You tell me, and if you can tell me, you better tell Rod Brindamore, because that was ugly at Lenovo in Raleigh.
This was supposed to be a matchup, at least at the start, of the storyline of rest versus fatigue, and TNT had a really good graphic about the amount of hockey these two teams have played through the first two rounds. Canadiens playing 14 games, the maximum, versus 8 by the Hurricanes, the minimum. Canadiens had played 47 periods of hockey versus 28 for the Canes. And the total minutes, 338 minutes and 31 seconds more. So we had even said, Neil, that going into this, what would manifest itself first? The fatigue of the Canadiens, who are playing 2 7-game series, including an overtime in Game 7 against Buffalo, or the Canes having 11 days off coming in?
I think it was clear that the 11 days off, in the first 30 seconds, we get a goal by Seth Jarvis, but then the floodgates opened and here comes Montreal. And Montreal seemed quicker to me. They seemed faster, because that's a little bit different than quicker. And they just seemed more on it than the Carolina Hurricanes. And I got to put that up to not having played a game for 11 days. And as the announcers, Eddie Olchuk and everybody else were saying, you can practice all you want. You can practice hard. You can play hard. You can scrimmage. It's not like a game. And I think that was evident.
The field goal lasted 27 seconds because after Jarvis' goal, Canadiens came right back down the ice. Slafkovsky to Caulfield to tie the game at 1. And then Montreal continued to get good chances, including Jake Evans missing an open net. But then on a 4-on-4, Alexander Carrier pass redirected by Josh Anderson to Philip Deneau, who beats Anderson on a breakaway at 4:04 to make it 2-1. And you could already see coverages were missed, reads were missed. There was just nothing going right in terms of how Carolina was defending. And Rod Brindamore said in an interview with Jackie Redmond that he said he didn't believe his team was prepared for the Canadian speed.
It certainly appeared that way, and the results proved that out, that they just couldn't be prepared for what they were going to face right away. And that rest may pay dividends down the road still. It may be rusty right now, but it may be less wear and tear on them, and the more wear and tear on the Canadiens may show up later in the series. But for last night, at least, it was clear-cut that Montreal was the better team.
8-11 mark, good pinch by Caden Gooley, and it's Deneau to Texier to make it 3-1. And then just an awful read by Keandre Miller in the neutral zone, and it's Alex Newhook springing Ivan Demidov on a breakaway at 11:32 to make it 4-1, and maybe much to your chagrin, I put none of this blame on Freddie Anderson. This was just dreadful defense throughout.
Wow, hallelujah for that one, because I thought for sure today I would hear how bad Freddie Anderson was from you, but I didn't think he was bad either. I mean, you've got breakaway after breakaway. You've got bad read after bad read. I don't think King Kong could have saved more pucks than he did.
Wow. You're really digging deep here.
For King Kong?
Yeah. Hey, remember how I praised TNT's graphic of the amount of time played right at the head of the show? Of course you remember.
Yes, it was only about a minute and a half ago, so how could I forget?
Well, and we're getting older. But anyway, then there were a couple of graphics that I've got to absolutely ping here. And the first one was that this was the first time that the Hurricanes had allowed 4+ goals in the first 12 minutes of a game this season. How many teams can actually lay that claim?
I know. That was stupid. That was a waste of time.
And then the graphic came up later about the most days off in history between series, and as we all know, the Hurricanes having 11, and that was only eclipsed by the Montreal Canadiens in 1919. So right away, you and I both knew that this had no context at all, because the Canadiens had 12 days off between winning the NHL championship and then having to travel by train to Seattle to play against the Metropolitans, who were the PCHA champions. And that's how the Stanley Cup was decided back then. And I'm going to let you take it from here.
It was a Challenge Cup. In fact, you can read that on the Stanley Cup, that it's a Challenge Cup. So you would challenge to win the Stanley Cup from the preceding winner. And this time they went out to Seattle in 1919. The Spanish flu epidemic was raging in the United States. And actually in Seattle, they canceled the final because of the epidemic. Defenseman Joe Hall of the Canadiens was hospitalized and later passed away in hospital. But the series was canceled, and up until the 04-05 season, 1919 was the only year the Stanley Cup had not been awarded.
And actually, the series was canceled right before the deciding game of that series.
There you go.
All right. Let's fast forward now 107 years back to this game. And we've already belabored this point that from the Carolina perspective, this was a clinic on how not to check and defend. And early in the second period, Cole Caulfield hit a post, which would have made it 5-1. But then William Carrier, on the ensuing rush down ice, hit Eric Robinson. And now it's 4-2, only 2:46 into the second period. So there's a little bit of hope for the Canes.
And the Canes fans, the Caniacs as they're called, know that their team is capable of a comeback of 2 goals. They've seen it happen many times this year. So there is a optimism that springs inside the Lenovo Center that the Hurricanes may be able to pull this one out.
We did see more pressure by Carolina, particularly in the second half of that second period. Seth Jarvis had a great chance for his second goal. It was in close, and Jakub Dobeš made a good save. That would have made it 4-3. But to me, this felt more like it was Carolina's pressure as opposed to sitting back the way they did for the second half of regulation time in Game 7 against Buffalo.
Yeah, I don't think that they were sitting back at all. They pushed, but they couldn't get through.
After failing on a power play early in the third period, it's Juraj Slafkovsky scoring a goal to make it 5-2. Beautiful toe drag, and he beat Andrei Svechnikov, obviously recognizing that a forward was back trying to defend.
It was a beautiful toe drag, although it was around a forward and not around a defenseman. Still, take nothing away. He scored the goal, and that gave them just a insurmountable lead.
Couple of beautiful one-touch passes from Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki to set that goal up. And Slafkovsky, with his second of the game, into the empty net with 2:28 left, made the final 6-2. But a few very notable numbers here. That top line for the Canadiens totaled 8 points on the night. Suzuki and Slafkovsky with 3 apiece. And then you flip this on the other side. For the Hurricanes, Stankoven, Blake, and Hall, who had been their best line in the playoffs through the first 2 rounds, combined for a -8. And Jacob Slavin, one of the best shutdown defenders in the entire NHL, basically said he personally handed this game to the Canadiens. He was a -4.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of stuff for these guys, meaning the Carolina Hurricane players, to go back, look in the mirror, and get mad at themselves and get really revved up for Game 2. Maybe that's what they need. Nobody, I don't think, thought that this was going to be 4 straight over Montreal. At least I didn't. I think that this may pay off some dividends to Carolina down the road. Now we're going to have to see who they end up going with in goal. I would imagine it's going to be Freddie Anderson. I can't imagine Brenda Moore changing goaltenders. But all kidding aside, Freddie Anderson's got to come up big for them in game 2 to prove that he's there for them. I mean, we can say it's not his fault. It's not his fault, but he did let 5 goals in. So he's got to come up big in game 2.
Just a couple of other offensive nuggets here. For the Hurricanes, only 2 shots on goal in the third period. In 54 of the 82 attempts that they took at the Montreal net in this game were either blocked or missed the net. So certainly a lot of room for improvement for the best team in the Eastern Conference during the course of this past regular season.
For sure, and we're going to see what we see on Saturday at 7 o'clock on TNT when Game 2 back at the Lenovo Center again, and see if these Hurricanes can bring this series to 1-1, or will the Habs take a, goodness gracious, what a commanding lead that would be to go back to Montreal up 2-0.
Well, think about this also, that track meets are usually not the cocktail that you want, certainly in playoff hockey. But boy, as Brendan Moore said, this Montreal team can skate. And if they could get the Hurricanes to chase them around again for a second straight game, that's going to be problematic. And I think this is really where his coaching and telling his team to maintain discipline and not chase these guys around is going to be key for the Canes.
And I think they will settle down and go back to the game that they play so well in game 2. I really do. I think they'll make major adjustments. Montreal will just continue to try to do what they did. And the Hurricanes will, as I said, I think they'll make major adjustments in their play for game 2.
Another team that may need to make some adjustments, the Colorado Avalanche, as they host the Vegas Golden Knights in Game 2 on Friday, 8 o'clock on ESPN. Morning updates for this game. Cale Makar once again out for Colorado with that upper body injury. And for the Golden Knights, Mark Stone did participate in the morning practice. So we'll see if he is able to come back for Game 2. But I think also, if you're Colorado, you've got to be prepared for Vegas cutting off your ice and really being resourceful in different ways to try to win this game. And a guy that I'm looking for the Avalanche to step up is Marty Necas. He is second on the team in scoring during the playoffs, only to Nathan McKinnon. He's one of the best shooters in the league, but to this point, only 1 goal.
Right. It's all assists that he's got. He's got to start to put the puck in the back of the net. He is a great shooter. He's a great goal scorer, but so far in the playoffs, 1 goal. Let's see how Colorado adjusts to what they saw in Game 1. My feeling is they'll adjust very well, and Vegas will see a brand new team come out on the ice.
So if you're Vegas now, though, and you're anticipating that, are you changing anything if you're John Tortorella?
I don't know what Torts would be thinking at this point. I'm sure he'll make some changes just that he thinks should be tweaks. But usually in the playoffs, the team that wins goes back and just tries to improve on something they've already done very well in the game before, while the other team completely adjusts what they did and tries to change what they did. So I look for the big changes to come from Jared Bednar and his team, and maybe some tweaks from Tortorella.
And I think if you're Colorado, create more open ice for yourself. And that's going to be tough because Torts is a chess master at this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Just one quick other note, Troy Terry, forward for the Anaheim Ducks, is going to have hip surgery and may not be ready for the start of the 2027 season. Neil and I will be back with you on Saturday with Stanley Cupdate, but on Thursday, we recorded our 100th NHL Wraparound episode, and we had quite a conversation with a very special guest.
Yeah, Commissioner Gary Bettman, the longest standing commissioner of any of the major leagues, was our guest, and it was terrific. Just terrific conversation between the three of us. And I really think you don't want to miss that one. That's a really good episode.
As I said at the start of that episode, we started on January 30th, 2024 with Gretz. And for our 100th, even though we've done so many other episodes throughout our other franchises, for Wraparound, for number 100, we aimed high again.
We did, and we were able to bring in the big fish, Gary Bettman, and he was just wonderful. Just have so much respect for him and the way he does things and the way he answers questions and the thoughtfulness of him. And I think you're going to see, if you listen or watch this episode, hopefully you watch it, you're going to learn things you didn't know about Gary Bettman, because I learned things I didn't know, and I've been around him since he started in 1992-93. So please, if you are going to miss any, don't miss this one.
Probably going to drop that one on Sunday, so look for it. So until then, enjoy the hockey on Friday, and Neil and I will be back on Saturday to recap Vegas and Colorado